This is now looking top down over Halava Valley from the Mauna Loa side on the bottom toward the Halava side on the other side. You can see the 2 rows of 10 black dots that represents the fuel storage tanks. You can see Red Hill Shaft. You can also see BWS, the Board of Water Supply, nearest wells on either side. To the south is Mauna Loa Wells, about a 3 million gallon a day source. To the northwest of the Red Hill Fuel Facility, less than a mile away, is our Halava Shaft, which is one of our largest sources for urban Honolulu, between 6 and 12 million gallons a day from that source. And then also our Aiea wells, Halava wells, and Aiea Gulch wells. Circled in red are the 3 BWS wells that are currently shut down. The common point of intersection between the Board of Water Supply and the Navy is really the underground aquifer. We both pump from the same aquifer. These wells, their wells, also pump from the same aquifer as the BWS wells. And we know that the aquifer near Red Hill Shaft is heavily contaminated because of the amount of fuel that's in the shaft itself, and the potential that maybe 19 or 20,000 gallons of fuel might have leaked right there. But we also know that below the fuel tanks, they have a record history of leaks over the almost 80 years of history of the facility, that the aquifer there is also contaminated. The thing that really is the million-dollar question for us is, can fuel contamination that emanating from this facility, from the tanks or the pipelines that leak out, can it travel in the underground aquifer through the porous lava rock, the same aquifer that we both use, and cross over to our sources and be pumped into our water system? So that's the million-dollar question. So there's something called a groundwater model, and as for those that are going to college, if you get into hydrology and hydraulics, you'll start to see something called computer simulation models. So the computer groundwater models are like a representation of the real world conditions. In the real world, the underground geology is very complex. So in a way, you create a computer model that'll be used as a tool to help you analyze different situations. So this groundwater model is something that the Navy has been working on for several years in review of the Department of Health and the US EPA, and BWS has provided comments. The Navy's contention is that, and normally this is the case, that water flowing is usually flowing from the Mauka, from the watersheds, down toward the Makai, toward the ocean, and it flows that way until it hits the cap rock and it leaks out to the cap rock at springs or other locations. But it basically Mauka to Makai. So you can see the blue arrows here. So that's the Navy's groundwater model, that they contend that the fuel leaks from the Red Hill facility won't make it across Halava Valley to our Halava Shaft or other wells in that area, and that they feel it'll all flow toward their Red Hill Shaft. So we contend that there is a potential, and this is based on field data collected from field tests coordinated by the USGS, the United States Geological Survey, working with the BWS, the Navy, and DLNR, that we feel that there is enough field data to support there is a potential for what we call cross-valley flow. So flow to the northwest. So fuel leaks from the Red Hill facility, we feel could migrate eventually across Halava Valley. And because of that, we have secured the 3 wells that are in that direction, because we cannot afford to put petroleum contaminated water into our water system. And in Honolulu, we probably serve over 400,000 people from Halava all the way up to Hawaii Kai. Also, the Aiea Halava wells serve the area from Iwa Ana Street west to Hikaha Street in Aiea. So that includes Pearl Ridge Shopping Center and Palimomi Hospital. So the Navy also did, with their groundwater model, they did some what they call particle track modeling. So if there was a particle of fuel from the Red Hill fuel facility, where could it possibly go? And they did many of those model runs, which is represented by each of these colored lines. But you can clearly see, at least from this, and that their particle track model runs did indicate the potential for fuel particles to eventually get across the valley and to get to our BWS wells, and also get to the Red Hill shaft. And that other white box kind of in the middle left portion of the page is what we think is their Aiea Halava shaft, which is currently shut off too. But eventually make it all the way out to Pearl Harbor at Kalawao Springs into Pearl Harbor. I just want to caveat this, the regulators, the Department of Health and EPA have not gave final approval for this report, but this is a report that was actually released in 2020. So on that basis, using the precautionary principle, because we cannot get this wrong, we cannot put fuel contaminated water into our drinking water system and it to go into people's homes and businesses. That we're taking the approach of shutting off the 3 closest wells. We are testing these wells, actually 5 wells around this fuel facility on a weekly basis. And thus far, we have not detected fuel contamination in these wells as of yet.